Please welcome Miranda Chai. She's from Purdue, and thank you so much for coming here. It is truly an honor to be meeting you. And uh, so she'll be talking about her high school experience, and then moving on to college admissions and uh, all of that. So the stage is all yours.
Yeah, thank you guys for inviting me. I'm so glad to be here. Like you said earlier, my name is Miranda. I'm currently a rising junior at Purdue University studying computer science, with also a certificate in entrepreneurship. So a little bit about me and my high school experience. I had like a stereotypical high school experience. Freshman year took normal classes, sophomore year normal classes with APs and all of that. But then it was my sophomore year where I decided to take a CS course. It was like an intro to Python course. And that's kind of where I kind of got that spark for CS and was super interested in it. And then following that, my junior year, I decided to take AP Computer Science. And that's definitely where I fell in love. I had a super supportive CS teacher. She was honestly the greatest and definitely one of the main reasons why I decided to do CS. She was like one of those mentors that pushed for women in STEM. So that definitely inspired me to pursue computer science. And then I continued with that my senior year, just being a TA for that. But going more in depth with my high school experience, I was also a part of like clubs, extracurriculars, such as playing varsity soccer all 4 years. And then also one of the main highlights was I was fortunate enough to be able to start a hackathon with one of my really close friends. It's called Digitize. We started it our junior year of high school because we kind of looked at all the high schools around us and we're like, how come Aragon High School? Oh, Aragon's the high school I went to. It's in San Mateo. But yeah, we were kind of looking at all the high schools around us in the district and we are like, how come Aragon doesn't have a hackathon? So we decided to just start one ourselves. So that was really cool. We definitely started off not knowing anything at all. But then eventually, with like our amazing team, we were able to actually run the entire event. We had 40 people, so that was really cool, and got to know every single one of our participants personally. So that was really fun. And it still goes on to this day, so it's really cool. And as for advice for high school, since I know majority of you all are in high school, looking back, I would 100% take on more extracurriculars. Like for example, I know when I was in high school, I definitely didn't take as many extracurriculars as I should have. I was definitely one of those high school students who was absolutely terrified of public speaking or even taking on leadership roles. So I highly suggest trying to step out of your boundary and trying new things because you never know, you might surprise yourself. And yeah, so definitely highly recommend that. But also, it is your high school years, and those are some of the most memorable years in your life. So as much as academics are very important, and they definitely are, because that's kind of what college applications look at, I highly recommend taking this time to be surrounded by your friends, do all the things you love, and be fully immersed with the whole high school experience, try new things, have an absolute great time, because college comes and then college is fun, but it's also very hard, and you don't have as much free time as you did in high school. So I definitely recommend that. But yeah, as for college applications, definitely started that my junior year. I was doing ACT prep, SAT. That wasn't fun at all. I was also doing subject tests. I know for you guys it's a bit optional, but definitely recommend taking it just to highlight like, oh, I'm really good based off of a standardized test and just show that you do have a little extra to yourself, extra thing to yourself. Um, but yeah, so I applied to several colleges, obviously a lot of California schools because I'm from California and I feel like every California student wants to stay in California. Um, and yeah, I really wanted to go to UC's, more specifically UC San Diego. That was like my dream college. Um, but obviously, as fate goes, it doesn't always go the way you want. So that unfortunately didn't get in. And I got into Purdue. Not gonna lie, Purdue was the only college I applied to in the Midwest, and I never in a million years thought I would be going there because if you're from California, why would you want to go to Indiana? Like Indiana is kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's like cornfields, all this and that. Um, but when I did come, completely blew me away. Definitely loved it a lot. But yeah, more going into the whole college application, highly recommend. I think a lot of universities look for someone who is very diverse in their skill set, not only academically, but also, like I said earlier, extracurriculars. Definitely having a lot on your plate, just showing that you take initiatives in things you are interested in. I think 100% my hackathon helped me a lot just because I was interested in CS and I started a hackathon to help other students participate in CS activities. So 100%, if you're interested in something and you want to start something, definitely do it. Don't let anything hold you back. And I think that's definitely a great asset to your entire application. And as for essays, it's not fun at all. I'm definitely not an English person. English is like, that's like my worst subject, but I would 100% recommend starting as early as possible on those essays and definitely have your teachers, um, people, your friends, people who you don't even know or like are good at English, definitely have them check your essays, and just make sure that you are on the right path. And yeah, what else would I suggest for college applications? Definitely don't limit yourself to just one state or a few states or a few colleges you think you only are going to apply to. Definitely apply for those safeties, targets, even reach colleges because you never know what college you'll end up in. Because I had no idea I was going to end up at Purdue. So definitely expand your horizons, do a lot of research into your colleges, know what programs they have specifically for the major you want. Or if you don't even know what major you want to do, just look into all the things the universities are giving it for resources. But yeah, I think that's mainly all the advice I had from high school to kind of college applications.
So maybe if you could, I know you talked a lot about your high school. Maybe if you could go, I mean, if you could talk about your first 2 to 3 year, I mean, 2 years, right? You've
Mhm.
completed 2 years. Maybe if you could talk about your first 2 years at Purdue, so we could all learn about more about Purdue college life there. I know second year was probably online, right?
Yeah, it was partially in person,
Mhm.
because it's like Midwest, a little bit Republican state, so they had less restrictions. But I
Mhm.
was online my first semester and second semester as well.
Okay, so maybe whatever you know from your first year, if you could share about college life at Purdue, um, we could learn about that. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll address them towards the second half of the session.
Yeah, so my first year at college, I knew absolutely no one coming in. I was the only one in my high school class that went to Purdue. Um, so it was like completely different atmosphere for me. Like I had no idea I would be in the Midwest. I've never been in the Midwest before. So it's definitely different. The weather, 100% is like the one thing that definitely shocked me. I don't do well in winter, so if you do end up at Purdue, be ready for that, just because California definitely treats all of us very well. And then as for freshman year, I took the main like CS courses. I took like object-oriented programming, where it's like Java, and I took math and stuff like that. And then I also decided to take neuroscience for some reason. Highly recommend looking into classes and talking to upperclassmen to see what are the good classes to fulfill your requirements because I thought I would like neuroscience. Turns out I didn't. Classes in college versus classes in high school are very different, 100%. Definitely do not underestimate them and listen to your advisor. And then also, let's see. Yeah, so freshman first semester was in person, so that's like the peak time to make friends. Um, Definitely always be in like the what do you call it? Like the common area for your dorms, just because that's like the easiest way to make friends. Everyone's always super welcoming. Everyone wants to make friends. So yeah, that's definitely a good thing to do. And what's also unique with Purdue is they have this thing called BGR, which is called Boiler Gold Rush. It's like a super fun event. It's like for incoming freshmen. It's a week before school starts, and you are basically put in this like group with a team leader, and you do a bunch of super fun activities. You learn all about Purdue traditions, and you do a lot of really fun things, and you meet a lot of people. And like, yeah, through BGR, I like met my two best friends that I still am really good friends with today. But yeah, oh, the questions popped up in the chat. Should I answer them now or later on?
We can hold off on the questions. We're adding them all in a document and compiling them. So once we kind of get through these like major points, we can answer all the questions at the end.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and then obviously second semester hit, and that's when the whole pandemic happened. You know, we all thought, oh, spring break, we'll come back afterwards. That didn't happen. So definitely transitioning to online was very difficult just because the people you used to see every day weren't there. Office hours definitely wasn't fun because you'd have to sit in a queue and wait in line. But yeah, as for my classes, um, took what did I take? I took discrete math, and then I also took programming in C, which is pretty good class. Definitely not fun online. Took a bunch of math classes too. Um, as for the whole online experience, it's definitely difficult to make friends, I would say, just because like it's you don't have that many opportunities. So definitely joining clubs is definitely beneficial. And finding kind of that little community within a huge campus and school is definitely essential to making your closest friends and people who you'll be friends with for the rest of your kind of college experience. And then let's see what else. My sophomore year, I took let me see. I took CS 250, which is this computer architecture. It's not fun for CS majors if you like just coding because it's all like hardware stuff and circuits. But yeah, regardless of my classes, I just took a normal CS classes. Um, and yeah, stuff like that. With Purdue, their social life though, it's definitely notorious for not having the most social campus, which I agree with. Just because it's in this city called West Lafayette within Indiana. West Lafayette is like basically just Purdue. And then outside of that isn't really much to do, which is unfortunate. And the nearest like big city is Indianapolis, which is an hour away, and then Chicago's 3 hours north. So it's a little unfortunate that the camp or the city you're living in doesn't have too much to do. But as a freshman, there's definitely so many things to do. Like Purdue has so many fun activities. We have this thing called at BGR, you learn there's this tradition called fountain runs where you basically run from fountain to fountain, which is super fun and highly recommend doing when it's like 100 degrees outside. But yeah, as for yeah, social life not super fun, but there's definitely things like if you try hard enough, there's definitely a lot of social events. But yeah, and then with that, definitely highly recommend joining clubs. 100%. Your freshman year, you have this event called the Be Involved Fair, and it's kind of where all the clubs show up and they talk about to the incoming freshmen about all their clubs and what they do. So that was super fun and a great way to learn about the different clubs and highly recommend joining a bunch of them. And then additionally, with Purdue, they have a bunch of certificates that I had no idea about. So definitely 100% recommend talking to your advisor about that, just because I didn't even know there was an entrepreneurship certificate. And it was great learning about that. And what's also unique about Purdue versus like the UCs, I heard from my friends' experiences at UCs that it's very difficult to find classes and your advisors aren't always the best. But with Purdue, in my experience for the CS advisors, they're super helpful. They're always willing to help you whenever you need it. They definitely are there to help you and get the classes you need. So you never are unable to get into a class you don't want. Also, with Purdue, what's unique with their CS programs particularly is they have this thing called tracks. So once you finish your first and second year, which are just normal basic CS courses that every CS major takes, your junior and senior year, you do tracks. So with these tracks, there's it's like specializations within CS. If I remember some of them, For example, there's a machine learning track, there's a software engineering track, there's a cybersecurity track, there's computer graphics track, there's like competitive programming, there's like a bunch of tracks, which you need to take your junior and senior year in order to graduate. So you just need to choose one track and stick with it, or you can double up tracks, triple up tracks, whatever your like space for classes can take. And that's like something that definitely was one of the main reasons why I chose Purdue. And then let me see what else in terms of Purdue. Yeah,
Um,
just being, oh yeah, keep going.
oh, oh yeah. If you have something, go ahead. And I was saying we could switch gears right after.
Yeah, and then I was just gonna add like definitely just extracurriculars at college. That's the best way to meet people. But yeah, we can definitely switch gears now.
Yeah. So a something that we ask a lot of the like session guests who come or speakers who come to our event is if you could change one thing about your high school experience, what would that be? Um, and I know you did mention possibly doing more extracurriculars. So if that is your response, like a lot of parents in our group chat and students are wondering, what's considering that junior year is considered like the most like rigorous academic year.
Hmm.
Um, like what's a good limit for extracurriculars? Because some people think they should be doing 9 or 10 different activities, which of course is a lot and might be difficult to handle with all the academics you're doing, especially considering that there's some reports that you should try to be well rounded in 2 or 3 and not doing 9 or 10 different activities where you have minimal commitment. So based on your suggestions and what you've seen, experienced, how many do you suggest that someone does or around a range, right?
Yeah, so I know junior year, since you guys are all studying for exams as well as preparing for college applications, personally, I would recommend maybe one or two main ones like that you're fully devoted to, or even just one that you're like in a leadership position. Because I know extracurriculars takes a lot of time. So extracurriculars are good, but you also need to focus on your essays and getting those college applications to the best you can. So definitely recommend like one or two that you're super devoted to, and definitely don't keep on adding it just because you think it's going to look good on your resume. It looks better if you're like involved for a while with one, rather than just adding on random ones just because you think it's going to look good on your resume.
Mhm. And is there anything else that you think that if you could relive your high school experience that you would change?
Yeah, so in my high school experience, like I said earlier, definitely taking on more leadership roles and stepping out of my comfort zone, but also enjoying high school 100%, because I was the type of student who only focused on academics and didn't do many fun things outside of school. So definitely taking advantage of the time you have left and definitely living it to your fullest and doing all the fun things you want to do, because you only have 4 years and then you go off to college. And then after college, you start working and you're in the real world. So definitely focus on academics, but don't have your entire life devoted to academics, and don't limit yourself to that. So yeah, that's one thing I would probably change.
For sure. And before we move on to the Q&A, one last thing is about the college application itself. As you mentioned, essays are often are not fun, especially if the student is not a writer.
Yeah.
Um, so two things. Often when you lack the motivation to write essays potentially, like where did you find that motivation from and how much time did you spend on the essay process and how did you like manage that with your extracurriculars in senior year, your academics in senior year, and stuff like that?
Yeah, so for me, my mom is very much a tiger mom. So I went through an actual writing camp where I literally spent like an entire week just day and night just sitting, writing essays, drafting the next one after the next. If that's the way you think is best for you, highly recommend doing that, just because it's like you're in an atmosphere with other students who are like, the only thing you can do is write essays. So it's kind of like putting yourself in that atmosphere. But if you don't have that option, um, to keep yourself motivated, I would definitely talk to your friends, see what they're doing, but also know like the more time you put in earlier, the less work you have to do in the long run, if that makes sense. So if you start earlier and you stay motivated, you'll get it done. And then you'll see all your other friends probably struggling to try and scrap together an essay, but you'll be done already because you stayed motivated, and you got it done early, and you know it's a really good essay that you spent time in. And even definitely use your resources. If you have AP English teachers at your school, talk to them, sit down with them, have them outline a plan or like a timeline with them, because I know 100% your teachers are more than willing to help you out and edit your essays and sit with you during lunch breaks. So yeah, that's what I would recommend.
And sorry, the final thing before we head on to the Q&A, this is the last general point that we want to get out. There's been a growing trend year to year of hiring a college counselor in order to help with essays, and maybe if you hire them earlier in your freshman or sophomore year, helping with extracurricular activities you should do and kind of planning out your high school journey. Did you have a counselor, and if so, what was your experience with them? Otherwise, did you wish you had a high school counselor, kind of like in that route?
I didn't. I had a counselor, kind of, you would say, for when I was doing college essays, because they did help me like put together a portfolio type of thing. But through high school, I don't think you need a counselor, because the school counselor should be enough. They should be able to help you with your classes, but also you should be able to yourself figure out like what you like and what you don't like, and be able to do research and ask around in your high school, like what are good classes to take and stuff like that. So I don't think it's really necessary or like essential to even have a extra counselor beyond your school counselor.
Got it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, I think we can move to the Q&A, and if parents and students in the call have any questions, you can put in the chat, and once we get through all the questions in the chat, we'll kind of open up to live Q&A where parents and students can just unmute themselves and ask questions. So I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat to the Q&A document that we have of all the questions that have come into the chat so far, and we can go from there.
Mm-hmm.
And one of us will also share our screens of the document. Yeah, so the link is in the chat to the Q&A document. Hopefully you all are able to access it, and we'll give everybody like 30 seconds-ish to get on the document. And once again, even if you have questions right now, you can put them in the chat, and the document will be updated live. We will still open it up to live Q&A towards the end. So yeah, we'll just, if you want, you can take a 1 minute rest. I know you've been talking a lot, so.
Yeah, sorry if I rambled about my whole college experience. I didn't know how in depth to go.
Oh no, it was good. I think at least me, I learned a lot of valuable stuff from it. So yeah, we can just take a quick 1 minute breather and get back to it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So, Preet, do you want to moderate the Q&A, or do you want me to do it? Either way is fine.
Yeah, I can do it if you want.
Okay, for sure.
Okay. So the first question that was in the chat was, I think, do you recommend starting college essays during your sophomore year or even during high school, junior year, or would you recommend it during like the summer of junior year, so before senior year?
Yeah, so I would definitely say sophomore year might be a little too early, just because it is your sophomore year, and I don't think many of us have accomplished that much within 2 years. But if you have, 100% applaud you. But definitely I think either end of junior year or your summertime is like a good place to start writing your essays.
I see. The second question was, since you were in California, how did you find a dorm and roommates for Purdue University?
Yeah, so for Purdue, they had a Facebook where for like class of 2023, which is me, and you kind of just put a little intro about yourself and pictures, and that's kind of how I was able to message, or I wanted to message someone to be my roommate, but ultimately I was unfortunately wasn't able to get her as a roommate and got paired with a random roommate. But luckily it turned out fine, so it was all good. But yeah, definitely recommend Facebook pages, even Instagram pages, stuff like that for like your class.
I see. And how are some of the professors in Purdue? I know that this is sort of like a broad question, but like in general, like how do they help you? Like sometimes they would maybe help you like stay after lecture and like maybe help you if you're stuck with something. So how are some of the professors in Purdue?
Yeah, so I definitely think it varies. From my experience, majority of the professors are more than happy to help you during their office hours, even if you have questions after lectures. Yeah, majority of the time, all professors at Purdue are super nice. Except for a few CS professors. I don't know why, but majority of them are super nice and more than willing to help you out.
I see. The next question was already answered, but how competitive is Purdue compared to other schools? What is the academic culture like at Purdue?
Yeah, so if you're applying CS Purdue, I 100% recommend applying early action. I think that's definitely one of the only reasons why I got in. It is definitely competitive. Um, I don't know if it's as competitive as, for example, like UC Berkeley or UC San Diego, but it's definitely up there. So highly recommend if you do CS, do early action just because they do over admit students. So definitely applying early just to ensure that you do have a spot. And then the academic culture. Yeah, so Purdue is definitely on the side of being very academically rigorous just because there isn't much to do around it. So you kind of just study, but there is definitely things to do around it and within the campus. Um, some of the classes for STEM definitely are a little difficult compared to high school. Just because I feel like, are very much a STEM school, just because engineering is really good, CS is pretty good. But yeah, that's what I would describe Purdue being. But it's also you're able to definitely balance between academics and extracurriculars 100%.
I see. Okay, that's pretty cool. Did you complete in any sports at Purdue? I know that you did soccer, varsity soccer in high school. Did you do anything in Purdue?
Yeah, so I was gonna do club soccer, but with the CS major, it's a little difficult. But instead they have intramurals, which is super fun, 100% recommend. I did indoor soccer, outdoor soccer. Um, I was gonna do indoor turf soccer. I did indoor volleyball. I was gonna do dodgeball. Like any sport you can think of, Purdue probably has it for intramural. And it's super fun, highly recommend. It's co-ed. So if you don't like doing co-ed, that might be a little difficult. But yeah, overall, it's super fun. And yeah, Purdue is a Division 1 school. It's like the
I
Big
see.
Ten tournament.
I see. The next one was what motivated you to finish all of your college? Oh, wait, that one's already answered, huh? Okay. Um, what majors are good at Purdue, and what is the tuition like?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, majority of their STEM school or STEM majors like CS, engineering, the sciences are really good. But also their agriculture I heard is really good. But yeah, I think that's what the good majors I guess you can consider at Purdue. As for the tuition, I would say tuition is actually significantly like cheaper than I expected. It's around 40 to 45K, so it's actually really nice for an out-of-state public school.
See, wow, that's pretty cool. Did you apply anywhere early decision?
Yeah, so I applied Purdue early decision. Um, what other schools? UIUC early decision.
Oh, early decision, not
Oh,
actual.
sorry. Oh, early decision. I didn't. If UC's had early decision, I probably would have, but early decision I didn't do anywhere.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. I think those were it in the questions in the chat. Um, if that's it, I think we can open up the Q&A to the audience. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them.
And we'll give everybody like a minute or two, maybe if they're still thinking about that, we'll see. So feel free to unmute yourself if you do have a question. So I actually do have a question. I'm heading into college next year, um, or like the year after this year. So, so far, have you found any research opportunities or internship opportunities at Purdue?
Yeah, so Purdue is definitely a research college. It's very easy to find it. They have so many opportunities. Even if you just email a professor, they're more than likely to tell you about research opportunities. They also have this program called DURI, which is a like research internship during the semesters, which is open to all majors, and they have some really amazing research opportunities, such as like machine learning for helping to navigate through like weather patterns, like extreme weather patterns, like so many amazing ones. Like you're more than likely to find a research opportunity.
Got it. Thank you. Um,
Oh yeah, sorry. And then as for internships, they have career fairs, so many career fairs every semester. So that was definitely useful, and I think was able to help me land my internship that I currently have this summer.
oh, cool. You're doing it. Oh, so um, where are you doing if you're comfortable sharing, where are you doing your internship this summer?
I'm doing it at oh, sorry, a little feedback. I'm doing it at Microsoft right now.
Oh, that's really cool that you're doing it at Microsoft.
Thank you.
Do you mind elaborating on your work experience there? Or like
Yeah,
what? All right, for
for
sure.
sure. So I'm a Explorer intern at Microsoft. So your freshman and sophomore years 100% apply to this because this is more geared towards students who don't have internship experience. And you work in like a pod of three, uh, and then you work on like one project. And I was put on to this team called the Office Media Group, which basically works on any like uh, web recording, video, audio platforms that any of the Microsoft applications uses. And basically, this entire summer, I've just been adding like video editing features within Microsoft Stream. So that's been really cool and super fortunate enough to do that. And overall, my experience has been great. Like Microsoft is such a welcoming community, and everyone there is so nice. 100% recommend like reaching out to anyone that you're interested in. Like if they're doing Windows or Office 365, all you need to do is just ping them on Teams and they are more than likely to talk to you. And they have so many intern events um, that you're able to participate in, meet other interns, even get to see like Satya, the CEO, talk. And it's like super fun. But yeah, overall, great experience at Microsoft. So definitely recommend applying.
So were you able to get this opportunity at Microsoft like through some connections at Purdue or like personal connections, or was it like an application open?
Yeah, so at the startup career fair, or not startup, excuse me, at the career fair at Purdue, I was able to talk to a recruiter, give them my information, and yeah, I was able to land that first interview.
Cool. We did see a question come into the chat. Two questions now. First one is, do you know the minimum GPA required to get into CS at Purdue?
I don't know, sadly. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's no problem. I think the information is probably on their website though.
Yeah, probably.
Somewhere online. So we can do the research and then get back to you.
Mm.
And I think there is another question. during your high school time, did you do any internships? And if so, did how much do you think that helped you in your college admissions or college application?
Yeah, so during high school, I did a thing called Cosmos. So that was super fun. It wasn't exactly an internship, but I feel like some of you would probably know what that is. It's like a science program. Yeah, I see some nods. And then I did the follow-up to that, which is called SIF, which is a science internship program at UC Santa Cruz. And that's also where I was doing like computer science related things. And I was basically coding a game for children who have like speech impediments, and that was like super fun, and that definitely opened up my eyes to like the possibilities CS brings to you.
It's pretty cool. I
That's
actually
great.
had a question myself. So I know you're having an internship at Microsoft, and I just had a question. How were you? How do you manage your time? Like, how do you manage to like have the internship and as well as still attend your classes and like time manage everything?
Yeah, so luckily since internship is during the summer, I don't have any classes, but you definitely can take a class during this internship. As an explore intern, I feel like it's not as much work as if you're a software engineer because you'd be working by yourself on a huge project. But in order to manage my time, I would definitely stay super organized. I kind of plan out like my weeks, and I have several meetings throughout the days and week or daily syncs with my entire team just to kind of notify them of what I've been working on, and that kind of motivates me to stay on top of it. Because if you don't really have anything to bring up, it's kind of not the best. But definitely just outlining your week, making sure you hit certain deadlines at certain times, and like tell your team ahead of time, like, I'm going to get this done by this day to keep yourself accountable. So, yeah, those are the things I do.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I know Cosmos is a really competitive program to first even get into, so that's really cool that you went there. Um, I never even applied to Cosmos, but do you have any suggestions for um, freshmen, sophomores, or juniors who could be applying to Cosmos about how to potentially get in?
Let me see if I remember. I remember from Cosmos, you can only apply to one university. I applied to UC Santa Cruz. Um, what did I put on there? Because I didn't really have much going in as like this was the summer before my sophomore year. Um, so I didn't really have much. I think just because I did soccer for literally so long, I think that they saw that extracurricular was great. And then my freshman year grades, GPA was pretty good. Um, and then Cosmos, I think also the essays helped a lot, if I remember them having essays. But yeah, sorry I couldn't give much. I don't really remember much about applying to
Yeah, no problem.
Cosmos.
All right. Yeah, that's all the questions. Oh, outside of the UC system, if you're comfortable sharing, how many colleges did you apply to outside of the UCs?
Yeah, so let me see if I can count. I think I applied to a total of like 18 schools. So are there 8 schools for UCs?
Yeah, I think there's like something around there, I suppose.
Yeah, I applied to all the UCs except for Berkeley, Riverside, and Merced. So like I had like 10 other schools ish that I applied to. That was within, I applied to like schools within California, and then UIUC and Purdue were the only Midwest. And then East Coast, I applied to like Northeastern, NYU, I think maybe Boston University, and a few of other schools. But yeah, I think 10 schools beyond UCs.
Thank you. All right, so we'll wait another minute or so, see if another question pops in the chat, or you feel again, you can unmute yourself if you'd like as well. Um, and depending on if another question comes in, we'll extend the session or end it there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think we can bring the session to a close. I think most parents got their questions clarified because of all the detail you included in your um, first like 20, 25-minute presentation. So thank you so much for coming today. And as I said in the beginning, I'm sure a lot of the parents and students that came today took a lot away from today's session. So once again, we appreciate you coming today to today's session.
Yeah, of course. I'm so glad you guys reached out to me about this.
So yeah, yeah. I guess there are no more questions. So thank you so much. We'll end the session here.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.